Hey everybody! So it's been a little while since we've done one of these, but I figured that with a fairly major Pixar movie coming out relatively recently in Incredibles 2, now would be a good time to make one of these videos to talk about my thoughts on Incredibles 2. Also, just a heads up for you guys, stick around after my little mini review and thoughts of Incredibles 2 because I actually have a bit of a question, like straw poll thing for you guys, some news for the channel that I wanted to get your opinion on before I move forward on that. So just stick around for that after we talk about the movie. So first things first, we can't talk about a Pixar movie without addressing the Pixar short. And the short before Incredibles 2 this time around was a short called Bow. And I really liked this one. So this was another one of those emotionally charged but also silent shorts. I've noticed that's kind of a theme throughout a lot of both the Disney Animation Studio and Pixar shorts is no dialogue, and there's something to be said about that, about how it kind of increases the visual storytelling really out of necessity, but it almost makes the stories more intense because we have to see kind of the emotion on the face and the actions of the characters. So, but that's another discussion for another day. In regards to this short, yeah, like I said, super kind of emotionally charged. It was kind of talking about empty nest syndrome for the mother in this case, but it was a little more specialized because it had to do with an Asian family, which has definitely caused a lot of kind of talk online. Tracking the reaction to Bao online has been pretty interesting because for the most part I've seen a pretty overwhelming positive reaction to it, but there was kind of a group of people who were confused by it, and I think the part that confused them, I think there were two kind of issues with it that confused, not issues, but two sort of points that confused them. The one was the kind of big shock moment, I guess spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Bao and would like to watch it now and come back later. But anyway, so I think the first part that confused people was when the mother eats the dumpling Bao in an effort to keep him from running off with the girlfriend. That seemed to be definitely the big point of kind of confusion. I know when that happened in my theater, there was like some uncomfortable laughter because part of it seemed funny to people, but it also was clearly supposed to be this big emotional moment. So like it was kind of this, I don't want to say uneasy, but like confused, I guess, reaction in my theater. I thought it was, like, I got it. I thought it was pretty emotional, but yeah, and I think that some people just didn't quite understand why it was emotional. Just the whole kind of deal, both that scene and the scene of the son reuniting with the mother. I don't think they quite understood why it was so emotional that, a son who's clearly older, just coming back to see his mother. Just a little background on me, and I think maybe explain why I kind of identified with the short, why I kind of got this short. So I grew up in a town that has a very large Asian population, to the point where white people are actually a minority in my town. So I have a lot of friends who are kind of from this culture, and in a lot of those cultures, especially from people who are first generation Americans, there's this super strong kind of disconnect, this kind of fight between cultures. And it's not typically common in a lot of the traditional Asian cultures for kids to leave the house, especially at like 18 or 20 or something like that, which is a lot more common in American households and in American culture. So you see this kind of big disconnect with these kids who grew up, born in America, grew up in America, and they want to kind of go off and do things, as opposed to the parents who kind of grew up in much more traditional settings who don't want to let them go yet. And that's really what this short was speaking to, because the director obviously kind of drew from personal experience from what I understand. So yeah, I think that's where some of the disconnect comes from, and that's where some of the confusion came from. From what I understood and from just seeing some of my friends talking online, this short was extremely emotional for them and hit real close to home. So I don't know, to me I think that's a sign that the short did a very good job. Again, me personally, I really liked it. I thought that it was I thought it was good. I thought it was, again, super emotional. And again, I just like the storytelling in it. I'm always impressed by nonverbal storytelling. So definitely would recommend checking it out. It's super interesting. Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about that. All right, so let's get on to the main event here. Incredibles 2, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. So the question that's always going to be asked, and it's asked of every sequel really, is it as good as the original? And after some thought and some consideration in the days following my seeing Incredibles 2, I still think that the original was better, and I'll get into some of my reasonings for that why later. But the fact that I had to at least think about it and kind of consider it is a positive sign. I mean, very often you go to see a sequel and you're like, well, that wasn't very good. It's nothing close to the original. So the fact that there's at least a discussion over which one is better, I think is good. So that's good. And yeah, I know we've had plenty of time, but if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want anything spoiled for you, I'm probably going to be delving into some plot spoilers in this. So pause the movie now, go watch it, come back later, we'll still be here. So yeah, so anyway, it's super difficult whenever you make a sequel to a beloved film. Like, I feel like The Incredibles was. The Incredibles was one of those movies that sort of, I think, I and a lot of other people, you know, around my age and younger and older, I think it kind of grew on us more over the years. For my personal experience with Incredibles, it's a movie that I liked when I was younger and when it first came out, and I liked it. As I got older, I started to kind of understand more of the subtext and understood kind of more of the subplots and some of the more, I want to say adult themes, but some of the more just kind of heavier, mature themes throughout it. And I grew to appreciate it a lot more because there was so much kind of depth to it. So when you have a film like that again, a lot of people enjoyed, obviously it's hard to make a sequel to that. It is made even harder when there's 14 years in between the two. So, you know, expectations start to get super rampant whenever you're talking about a 14-year kind of layoff in between movies leading up to a sequel. And what I thought was kind of cool was before the movie started, I'm not sure if this happened in every theater, but before the movie started, at least in my theater, the actors and actresses were on screen, sort of like pretend apologizing for why it took so long, kind of saying like, hey, animated movies take a long time, so like, we know it took 14 years, but you know, we hope you enjoy. So I thought that was kind of a nice little touch to a wink and a nod to how long it took to get this sequel that I think that everyone. It's weird because I'm usually not a big proponent of sequels for the most part. I'm always kind of very, especially for movies that I like, I'm always super cautious about sequels. But for this one, for Incredibles, I always felt that a sequel was a lot more possible, partially because it's a superhero franchise, and those movies tend to lend themselves, especially as we see nowadays, tend to lend themselves to more sequels. So one of the things that I've grown to really like about the original Incredibles that I thought that they did a good job kind of bringing into the sequel here is The Incredibles does a real good job of blending the mundane with the fantastical. And what I mean by that is, you know, in the first movie, we have obviously this huge superhero mission that Bob is on, and that's kind of blending with, you know, the marital trust issues and dealing with the kids and all that stuff and kind of all that, you know, sort of everyday stuff. Here, the script's flipped a little bit in that we have Helen on the big mission, while Bob deals with, you know, being a good dad and kind of everything that has to go into that, and kind of, I guess, the heroism or super heroism that goes into that. So I thought that was kind of cool that we were able to bring that back, because it would have been super easy to just make it kind of your standard superhero movie. You know, they all have powers, everyone knows so they have powers, and they fight the bad guys and move on. I like that we are able to kind of blend these two together, where we are kind of able to blend this sort of family story with a superhero story, and blend this, again, the mundane and the day-to-day and the stuff that's a lot more easily relatable for your average person to something that is this fantastic and larger than life story. So I thought that was the bread and butter of the original Incredibles. I was happy to see that kind of brought into Incredibles 2. It was good to see that, and I had full confidence. Brad Bird knows what he's doing, and he had always said he would never do a sequel unless he had a real good story. So I was always kind of confident that they would bring those elements in, but I guess you never really knew. And the other big fear that I had going into a movie, especially with such a long layoff, is some of the necessary changes, some of the changes that had to happen. The big one is some of the voice changes. The person who voiced Dash in the original was was a kid. Obviously, his voice has changed a bit over the last 14 years, so they tried to get another kid to sort of mimic and match that voice. And yeah, when the first few lines, you can certainly tell that it's different. It's a close imitation, but you can certainly tell that it's different. But the good news is once you kind of get like 10 minutes into the movie, you sort of blend into it. I didn't really notice it the rest of the way. So a really good job to the casting directors and to the kid for getting the voice close enough that it wasn't like this super jarring thing. Because that's always rough whenever you see it happen a lot in like television shows and things like that. Whenever you get like a new actor or a new voice actor or something like that, and it can be so jarring and kind of take you out of it. So I was glad to see that didn't go too poorly. And the other big one, which is always kind of a bummer, is Bud Luckey, who of course passed away. He voiced the FBI agent who kind of helped the Incredibles with their normal life. Obviously, he passed away. The person who got to do the voice again did the best he could. Obviously, but like it's such a distinct voice, so that was rough. I mean, he wasn't a huge part of this character wasn't a huge part of the film. This time around, it wasn't like a mega part last time either. It wasn't a big part this time around, so it wasn't like this make or break thing, which was nice. But yeah, it was just a bummer because it was kind of like a reminder. Oh yeah, this guy's not here anymore. It was nice to see the movie was dedicated to him at the end of the credits. So yeah, a bummer, but again, they did the best they could in a situation that was sort of unavoidable. And of course, the other always kind of hold your breath moment whenever you're dealing with sequels is new characters. There's a few new characters in this, so we kind of met, some more people with superpowers who had, minimal roles, but whatever. That kind of wasn't the big deal. The big new characters were the Dever siblings, Winston and Evelyn, who kind of start as they kind of lead into the story of they lead us into the main plot of the film, and as we find out, Evelyn in particular is a little shady. Yeah, I thought these characters were fun and interesting. They got a bit of a backstory early on. It didn't feel tacked on, so that was cool. Yeah, nothing really bothered me about the backstory or really too much about the characters. What I thought was interesting, of course, was that, I don't know, maybe it was just me. I always kind of felt that something was up with these two. It always felt like this was the real big bad. Especially because we sort of established in the first Incredibles that the big bad, or the main villain, doesn't just come out of left field. There is always some kind of connection to the main family or to the story in general. So the fact that we had the screenslaver who was kind of like the red herring bad guy, the fact that sort of came out of left field never felt too convincing to me. What's funny is I actually thought that Winston was going to be revealed to be the bad guy, or both of them were going to be revealed to be the bad guys, because Evelyn had the tech smarts, so that always throws up a red flag. But I thought that Winston, because he was so kind of gung-ho on bringing back supers, making supers legal again, I thought that maybe he would have come up with this concept of the screenslaver to try to justify legalizing supers. So I guess that one kind of got me because he ended up just being totally a good guy. Yeah, so it's like the one drawback, I guess, is that because they were new and because you kind of understood how the story works, I don't know. Me personally, I was always suspicious of them. So I guess let me know what you guys, if you guys got kind of fooled by the big twist that Evelyn was the real baddie in all this. But yeah, it was definitely a red flag for me. I was onto them. Some of the cool things with this movie, I wish they used it more. I think they called it the Elasticycle. It was kind of like the motorcycle that that Elastigirl uses when she was on missions, and it kind of can break apart. So what was real cool was she was doing this chase scene with the train, and there was all this real cool animation and real kind of innovative ideas with the concept of a motorcycle that can split in half. So I kind of wish we got to use that more, just because I was really enjoying that scene and enjoying kind of seeing all the different and unique ways that you could use a motorcycle in combination with Elastigirl power. So that was really cool. Really, surprisingly, all the scenes with Bob, even though they weren't, you know, for the most part, superhero stuff, I actually really liked. I really liked kind of seeing him, you know, struggle a little bit and kind of, you know, it was interesting because I was afraid when all of those scenes started, because he was kind of showing this almost jealousy of Helen and the fact that she got to go on this mission. I was kind of afraid we were going to go down that route, that like he was going to be envious and then try to, you know, we were going to see like a negative side to Bob. So I was glad that we didn't really go down that route, and instead he kind of took it as a challenge to become, you know, a super dad. So, which, you know, to middling results as we find out. But yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed his scenes. It was nice because we saw him so much in the first movie be the superhero. Obviously, we did see some you know, a lot of human side to him as well. But we saw so much of him being, you know, Mr. Incredible, be the superhero. So it was kind of cool to see kind of the opposite sides of both him and Helen, because Helen was so much the mom in the first movie, so it was kind of cool to see her be Elastigirl again. So yeah, that kind of role reversal I thought worked. It kept things fresh. That was kind of fun. And the big thing for me, I don't know about you guys, almost every scene that Jack was in made me laugh hysterically. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just because it's like a baby laugh or something about that. Everything that he did just made me laugh. And the reactions that the other characters had to his powers, the reactions that Bob had, and kind of trying to rein in this uncontrollable, you know, uncontrollable kind of fountain of power that is Jack. I don't know. I found almost every scene that he was in super entertaining and super funny. So that was kind of cool. Because again, we didn't get too much of Jack in the first movie because he's just being babysat. So it was another element that they could throw into this movie that, even though it felt familiar and it made sense in the grand scheme of the story, it did help keep things fresh. So that was much appreciated. So yeah, like I said, really liked this movie, was pleasantly surprised by it, because I wasn't really sure what my expectations were going in, because again, sequels and me, I'm always concerned. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I enjoyed it. Like I said before, I do still think the original probably is a little bit better. I think that there was I don't know, something about that plot I feel like almost did the whole undertones of kind of real life and dealing with superheroes a little bit better. I don't know, it's hard for me to explain really why I felt the first one was better. Some of it might just be nostalgia, honestly, but you know, I thought the bad guy, that's definitely a big thing. I thought the villain was better in the first movie, because you really felt Syndrome's motivations. He was super connected to the Incredibles. He was super villainous and like a mega bad guy. I mean, we're talking about like killing supers. It's like really hard stuff. So yeah, and especially with superhero movies, the villain always makes the movie. So while I thought that the villain here was fine and it was interesting, it was different because we had kind of a red herring villain and we dealt with all that. So while I thought that was fine and that was cool, it's hard to top Syndrome. I really liked that character in the first movie. So that might be the thing that really put the first one over the top of the second one. That's not to say the second one is a bad movie. It's not to say I didn't like it. It's just, you know, the first one just a teensy bit over the second one. But I can't talk about Incredibles 2 without addressing one of the main controversies of this movie, which I didn't think was going to be possible for Incredibles 2 to have a controversy, but it did, and that is the super flashing lights and the complaints for epileptic and you know, sensitive people who are sensitive to flashing lights and those sorts of things. Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me that this just seemed like sort of an oversight on the part of Pixar. Because I don't know, it feels like it's something that's super obvious, that if you have lights that are flashing like that as consistently as it was happening. Because basically anytime Super Slaver came on screen, it kind of dealt with flashing lights. Yeah, so it seemed like a bit of an oversight on Pixar's part, and it's unfortunate that it took... Luckily, people jumped on it kind of quick. I saw stuff as soon as the day following opening night. People posting on Twitter, just kind of giving heads up to people who are prone to epileptic seizures or epilepsy in general, about kind of the flashing light warning. The theater that I had had a warning on the. It had a warning posted outside the ticket booth regarding Incredibles 2. And there was also a warning before the movie showed about it. So from what I understand, that's not universal, I think, but it seems like it's in a lot of theaters now. Obviously, the filmmakers have addressed that. From what I've seen online, it doesn't seem... I haven't seen any like major stories of people falling into epileptic seizures, so that's good. That's always positive, but I can certainly see why it would happen. Again, I don't have epilepsy, but especially the scene in the cube, the fight scene between Elastigirl and Screenslaver, man, like it was hurting my eyes. So yeah, a weird kind of oversight on Pixar's part. I don't know how I'm sure that there were ways to get that effect across without actually having that kind of flashing effect. Because it is a little disorienting even to, just your standard viewer. But, yeah, an unfortunate oversight. I'm going to be curious to see what happens in the home release if they have a more kind of epilepsy-sensitive version, either with the home release or if they just kind of fix the home release a little bit so that it's not as kind of a jarring thing. So that'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. So yeah, so that's kind of Incredibles 2 in a nutshell. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Curious to see where the franchise goes from here. If they leave it off, if they leave it here, which they certainly could, and I'd be fine with that. If they do an Incredibles 3, which if they do, hopefully it won't take 14 years to make. But if they do, as long as Brad Bird is attached to it, and the people who made this film are attached to it and made the original Incredibles, I'm willing to give it a shot. Pixar, for the most part, does have a fairly good track record when it comes to sequels, even though I'm always very skeptical of sequels. So if they do an Incredibles 3, as long as the right people are attached to it, I'm sure they'll take enough care to do it correctly, so I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. Maybe they do an offshoot. Maybe they do like a Frozone movie. I know a lot of people who would be super into that because Frozone is an awesome character, and it's just fun kind of seeing Samuel L. Jackson involved as Frozone because... Again, I want to say in 2 movies, he's probably had maybe 15 minutes of screen time, and everyone loves Frozen. Everyone loves the "Where's my super suit" line and all that stuff. So, maybe they do something like that, and that would be kind of fun too. I could be into that. Maybe they do a throwback movie where we see them in the golden age of superheroes. So. That would be fun because again, even in how in the timeline it is now, the music is so cool and kind of all that 50s and 60s vibe is so cool. They could go even further into that if they did kind of the golden age of superheroes. So a lot of different directions that this could go, or they could just leave it here. Either way, as long as, like I said, as long as the right people are involved in the decision making of it, I'm going to trust them and I'd be down for it. So before I go, I said I wanted to pick your guys' brains for something, kind of get your feelings on things. So about a month ago, I'd say now, there was the major and long-awaited announcement that the video game Kingdom Hearts 3 finally has a release date. It will be released in January of 2019. I, myself, am a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. I know I don't talk about gaming very much on here, but yeah, it's awesome. I remember playing it when I was younger, and I've followed the series as best I can throughout the years. And yeah, so I am super excited for Kingdom Hearts 3, as I am sure a lot of you are super excited for Kingdom Hearts 3. So something that I've always, considered doing at some point would be to do a Disney Guy review style review for the Kingdom Hearts games, especially in the lead up to KH3. And to do that, I would want to, capture my own gameplay footage to avoid any sort of, theft or copyright kind of issues. And just because, heck, I always like playing through the game, so it's just an excuse to play through the games. With that in mind, what I wanted to ask you guys is, would you guys be interested in seeing me kind of do a Let's Play of the Kingdom Hearts series of games? So how I was thinking of doing this, if it is something that you guys are interested in, would probably be a Patreon exclusive series, at least at the start. So like, for example, with Kingdom Hearts 1 would be a logical place to start. I would make the episodes and would upload it exclusively for my Patreon viewers until the end of the series. Once I'm totally done with the game and totally done with that series, Kingdom Hearts 1, then I would start to upload the videos onto YouTube, on a weekly, bi-weekly, tri-weekly basis. We would figure kind of that out as we went along. I would probably start up a separate channel for this, because I don't want to bog down this channel with like constant video game updates, because I don't really want this channel to be that. This would be just a total like side project in a way. That's kind of where my head is at right now for what I want to do for this, but let me know what your guys' thoughts. Is this something you're even interested in at all? If you're not, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. I don't blame you. But if it is something that you're interested in, what do you think of that format? Are there formatting changes that you would make? That sort of stuff. And then, obviously, once I finished the series, then I would probably start to work on like a Disney Guy review style review, looking at kind of the background, the development, the review of the game, all that stuff for the individual games. It's, again, the Kingdom Hearts franchise is so ingrained with Disney because obviously it uses Disney characters, it pulls from Disney stories, so I don't think it's like a super out of left field thing for the channel to do, or for me to do. So yeah, that again, I just want your guys' thoughts on this. Again, this is super early, super rough, drafty, kind of, talking off the top of my head sort of thing. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on it. Is it something you'd be interested in? If it is something you're interested in, what do you think of that format? And if you don't like that format, how would you change that format? So that's kind of where I'm at. All right, I think that's enough rambling from me for one day. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on all of this stuff. Let me know your thoughts on Bao, Incredibles 2, which one do you like better, Incredibles or Incredibles 2, and why? The Kingdom Hearts 3, are you excited for the release? Are you excited for the game? Or would you be interested in seeing me do that whole video game project thing? All of that stuff. Leave your comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to help support the channel, you can always check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Joe the Disney Guy. You can get a lot of cool rewards. As that grows more and more, we can probably grow the rewards more and more. The big thing right now that you get if you join my Patreon is you do get access to some exclusive videos. I do some reviews of non-Disney movies that I put up there in this sort of style. I need to start making more of those. I promise my Patreon backers, I will start making more of those. I'll try to put those up a little bit more often. And you get access to all of my major videos, all my Disney Guy review videos, and all the Disney history videos and the influential people videos. All of those, you get all those 24 hours early. So those are right now the main perks. Obviously, as that grows more and as we get more people, maybe we'll get some bigger and better perks. And as the channel grows more, it'll be on the strength of those Patreon backers. So that'll be really cool. If you want updates with myself and the channel, you can always check my Twitter, twitter.com/Joe the Disney Guy. Again, everything's very simple. It's all just /Joe the Disney Guy. Yeah, and I think that's it for me. So, working on Great Mouse Detective. Get excited. We're full steam ahead on that. So hopefully I will have that out in a couple weeks, or that's certainly the plan. I'm trying real hard. Guys, to at least get you one major release a month. I'm really trying. So again, I'm not dead. I'm not disappearing. I'm just super busy with work all the time because this is not my full-time job, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to try real hard to get that up by the end of the month. Should be able to. Hopefully we'll be able to. Fingers crossed, right? So, yeah, working really hard on that. So, hopefully, next time you see me, it will be for Disney Guy review of The Great Mouse Detective. So, until then, I'll see you guys later.